I think the other main interesting thing that's come from the words of James Franklin of late is lack of words or confusing words, in my opinion, maybe related to injuries. It feels like do you feel like we've seen a shift on James Franklin's injury stance? And what would be maybe your answer to the question he asked the other day to the media when I think it was Mark Brennan kind of brought it up of you know, I don't understand why you guys have to ask that. What's maybe your retort to that?
My response to that, and we had this discussion, a couple of us, he does understand that we have to ask that. He knows we have to ask that. He just doesn't like that we ask it. He doesn't want to talk about that. So it's in a way it's his way of trying to at least stop those kinds of questions until he feels like he's comfortable answering them. He doesn't want to answer them at all in any way. It was interesting today. I mean, I asked him about Nick Singleton, and you have to try to frame a question in a way that he's going to try to say something. So I asked him, what do you want to see from Nick Singleton this week that would allow you to believe that he can play Saturday? And he answered it. He answered it, I thought, pretty well. He gave a kind of a recap of what happened last week, said he expects Nick Singleton to play. And that really is just a story in and of itself. Then Mike Gross of the Lancaster newspapers followed up and asked them about their injury report. They have a huge long list of players on their injury report. The only team that I think had more this season has been UCLA. And that could be, some teams they might not put guys on their injury report. That does not mean that Penn State necessarily has more players injured or at least unavailable. I don't know. It's not an injury report. It's technically an availability report. So there could be players who just are not available for other reasons. I don't know. But Penn State, I think the number was 16 that was on their availability report as out for the UCLA game. And a lot of them were guys that weren't going to play this year anyway. We don't know their status. There just seemed to be maybe season-ending injuries, longer-term injuries. We don't know their status. They weren't going to play, and they just keep listing them every week, which I understand. But what came out of that, his answer to Mike Gross about the nature of their injuries, and they have had more this year. He's acknowledged that and discussed that. He used the term season-ending. He said we've had more season-ending injuries, and honestly, that's the first time I've heard him use those specific words this year, because he has reframed injury discussion with the term long-term. And I think that goes back to a couple of years ago. I want to say it was Uriah Fisher, but I'm not. It was a defensive lineman who was injured. I think it was Uriah Fisher, but I'm not. I don't have it in front of me. Injured early, and then he used the word long-term, and actually Uriah came back and played very late in the year, like got in a game or something like that, or might have even been the bowl game. And so he no longer uses the term season-ending for what would appear to be for some of these players season-ending injuries, but he did use it today. I don't know what changed there. So the other thing I would say is that we ask about these things, and for the most part, he's not going to discuss it until he discusses it. You never really know with him whether he's going to say something about an injured player or somebody's availability. We really truly don't know. He was asked about Nick Singleton at practice last Wednesday, said he had nothing to add or nothing to say at that point. After the game, he addressed it. He addressed it again today. There are times when he will say a player's hurt, has bumps and bruises. We don't know. So if we stop asking, we stop getting some of that information. So that's why, the continuation of asking it, when he says, I don't understand why you're wasting the question, that just seems to me that he doesn't want to discuss it at that point, and he just gets a little irritated in that moment that he doesn't want. That's not when he wants to discuss it, or maybe it's something new and fresh that he's not ready or willing to discuss at that point. But if we stop asking, then he doesn't have to say anything. So I'm more comfortable. I'm fine with him saying no, but at least I'm not fine with us not asking him these questions, especially when it involves your best player.
Oh, I think that was kind of the confusion, because Tuesday Singleton was available to you guys. Yeah. You guys chatted with him, and then he wasn't at practice, and it is legitimate news that he is not there. Like, where is he? And I think it's fair to ask. I think that was
Yeah.
when Mark asked the question the way he did. I thought that was a good way. But then the way Franklin followed up on it was it just made it even more confusing. Do you, as a beat writer, do you want college football to go to like the NFL style of Wednesday, full participation, Thursday, did not practice, etc., Friday, and then game ready status?
I understand that that's probably that's a sports gambling. Excuse me. I think that's some of that's tied to sports betting, and maybe college football doesn't want to wade completely into that. But I think it would just open up some transparency on things like that, because then don't get all the other attendant questions that come with college football that don't come in the NFL. Nobody will ask a Wednesday in the NFL if a player is unavailable. Does that mean he's redshirting and going in the portal? Which is exactly the kind of question that I got last Wednesday about Nick Singleton. That was he played 4 games. He could, theoretically, he could have said, I'm redshirting. And I was asked that. I asked that. Somebody, brought that up. Is he redshirting and going in the portal? I heard he was going in the portal. Or I heard he's holding out for more NIL money. And when you like into that vacuum in college football, that becomes huge with instances like that. So I think just a minor bit, just a minor more, a smaller bit of transparency, just saying to Mark Brennan, like last Wednesday, this is a maintenance day for Nick. That's all. Where he doesn't have to give out any information. That's not even giving out any information about his status, which is some of the stuff they're trying to protect. If he's not there, and you don't see him, and you say this is maintenance day, even that little bit, I think forestalls all these things that college football brings to the table that just aren't part of the NFL.